Hey guys, it's Godbars here, the self-proclaimed hip-hop historian, and this is the 135th episode of my series where I grab a vinyl from my collection, talk about why I love it, what influence it has, and what its place is in the grand scheme of hip-hop. Another album that inspired me to stretch the boundaries for my 80s classic sets. Brand Nubian was one of the crews that really blurred the lines between a few of the different types of hip hop that were proliferating at the time. This killer collective was made up of three MCs as well as three DJs, and while the lineup would alter slightly depending on which LP you're listening to, for the most part, the roster consisted of Lord Jamar, Sadat X, Grand Puba, DJ Alamo, DJ Stud Doogie, and DJ Sincere. All of the rappers in this collective are insanely talented, but while Sadat X is a personal favorite of mine, there's definitely certain topics I vehemently disagree with him on, especially homosexuality. To my knowledge, this stemmed from Sadat and Lord Jamar's involvement in the Five Percenter movement, which the group would include on One For All to a degree, gaining them a level of controversy from the very first LP here. However, while core member Grand Puba would momentarily step away from the group prior to their second album, the other two had no interest on backtracking on any previous stances. If anything, they doubled down with some pretty blatantly homophobic lines included on the track Punks Jump Up to Get Beat Down that were subsequently removed from later remasters of this sophomore record, which is actually an insanely solid project when you put that aside. However, the reason I feel like this is relevant to One For All is because I follow Sadat X on Instagram, and from what I can tell, any changes to his slurs and comments on the and from what I can tell, the retroactive changes to his slurs and comments most likely came from pushbacks the label gave them due to public backlash. I can admit I'm not too versed in the movement he's a part of or his wider religious beliefs, but from my view, it kind of can conflict with some of the positive messages of affirmation and unity that come on the first album here. Especially because that album doesn't have much, if any, content that looks down on any other marginalized group. To be fair, you do have to take a look at the wider context of the time, because as I've referenced in earlier videos, it isn't like the 90s was the most inclusive time for the LGBTQ community, so I can't really pretend these guys were alone in this field. And I'm sure there's been some level of mental growth and maturity over the years, as you'd expect from anyone who's been in the game as long as these guys. Really, hip hop is a culture, was transitioning, and so was the fun, colorful, happy go lucky attitude that the native tongues popularized, in favor of the more grimy, hardcore sound that groups like Mobb Deep or Onyx were bringing to the table. Even with groups like De La Soul or A Tribe Called Quest, albums like Beats, Rhymes, and Life or De La Soul is Dead showed that this movement was shifting into something with a bit more edge and discomfort. I wanted to start off with that aspect of Brand Nubian's career before delving into topics more relevant to this album I'm actually discussing today, just to be transparent and honest. But I want to reiterate that really isn't an issue on One For All. The reason I can still respect Jamar and Sadat despite having different opinions is because they're both ridiculously talented MCs, and Grand Puba is right up there on the same pedestal. Sadat has this improvisational style that's all over the place in the best way possible, and with his higher register, it really gives the perfect contrast to the more controlled yet equally personable lower end held down by Puba and Jamar. While I can hear a certain similarity between Sadat X and some of the early Pharaoh Monch flows, as I mentioned on my review for his solo debut, Internal Affairs, it's really mostly in the vocal tone department. The approach that each one of those master lyricists takes to their craft is totally unique, and Brand Nubian was a little bit earlier than Organized Confusion. Lord Jamar, to an Eminem stan, may be somewhat of an antagonist due to his statements about M being a guest in hip hop, but the vast majority of his ball gargling fans left comments about how nobody ever bumps Lord Jamar in the whip and how they'd never even heard of him. As always, that's just Eminem stans embarrassing themselves and showing their lack of knowledge for the genre they're supposed to love. And the funniest part of that whole situation to me is how often they would use this excuse of, oh, nobody's ever said, put on that new Lord Jamar. When honestly, that's not something the average adult or probably even teenage rap fan has said about Eminem since like 2011. If you're someone who disagrees with this idea of white rappers being a guest in hip hop, first off, you better not be the same type of person who whines when they make some traditionally white Disney character black, unless race doesn't exist for music and there's no such thing as a black art form. But then when they make a white cartoon character a different race, that's invading your space and changing history. But then a black pioneer who helped develop the music and culture we all love, like Jamar, has an opinion about a white rapper being a guest and his word just means nothing. Whether I agree with his statement or not is kind of irrelevant. It's more about how people will try and invalidate his opinion just because they don't know who he is. I'll see people take a legend like Cool G Rap who had said he disagreed with that statement, and they'll say that because G Rap was more influential as a rapper overall, that his word trumps Jamar's. Personally, I think that's a bit of a cop out because if you're some fan of the music, white, black, or any other color, you should respect pioneers of that genre enough to at least hear out their point of view and not negate it just because you don't agree. These guys have earned the right to have whatever opinion on hip hop that they want, because not only did everyone in Brand Nubian display insane technical consistency throughout their storied careers, but even if One For All had been the only thing they ever put out, it would still be a massive landmark and contribution to the culture. The legendary Dante Ross was an essential name in the Brand Nubian lore too, because he EP'd this album as well as assisting in the production, alongside Dave Jam Hall, Skeff Anselm, Stimulated Dummies, and the members of the group themselves. They easily could have gotten away with zero guest appearances on this thing, as it's so densely packed with infectious flows, thought-provoking rhymes, and forward-thinking instrumentals, but they do invite Positive K on here for a feature for the fittingly titled track Grand Poobah Positive and LG. For honorable mentions on this classic, I think I'm gonna go with Ragtime, Feels So Good, To the Right, Wake Up or Reprise in the Sunshine, Try to Do Me, Dance to My Ministry, and Who Can Get Busy Like This Man. When it comes to my overall three favorite songs, I think I'd have to go with Slow Down, All for One, and Step to the Rear. Thank you for watching my 135th video. Next time, we're going to go over to the West Coast for the first time in a while to discuss one of the biggest Bay Area pioneers that I've passed over until now. So look out for that one, and if you enjoyed, be sure to like, subscribe, and let me know what your favorite songs off this stellar debut LP are. Don't forget to have a great day, and I'll see you next time, okay? Alright.